Good day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So I thought I'd make a video going over the DJI RC and the RC Pro, talking about the pros and cons of each. Perhaps if you're in the market for one of DJI's smart style controllers, you might be wondering, do you go with the cheaper alternative, or do you go with something that's a little bit more powerful but does have a much higher price tag? Both controllers are now fully compatible with the Mini 3 Pro, the Air 2S, and of course the Mavic 3. But there are some pretty massive differences between the two, and that's what we're going to discuss in this video. First of all, let's talk about price. The DJI RC Pro comes in at $1,200, $1,199 to be exact, so that's a pretty hefty price tag for what it is. Whereas on the other hand, the DJI RC only comes in at $309. So for most people, that's much more of an appealing price. And realistically, I think the DJI RC is a good choice for most people. Both controllers work extremely well for what they offer, but at the end of the day, that price is very appealing, and I think that's going to be the main deciding factor for most people. Now, when it comes to comfort, both are extremely comfortable to hold. One thing to note, however, is that the RC Pro is quite a bit heavier. It comes in at approximately 680 grams, whereas the DJI RC comes in at about 390 grams. So that can be an important factor as well. The DJI RC is nice and lightweight. It's not quite as bulky, so if you're a person who's going to be using it for travel or hiking or any time you're going to be carrying the controller around with you quite a bit, something like the DJI RC might be a better choice. Now, the next thing you may want to consider when deciding what controller is right for you, and that is the screen brightness. The DJI RC comes with a screen brightness of 700 nits, whereas the RC Pro comes with a screen brightness of 1000 nits. And in all honesty, that extra 300 nits is quite noticeable when you're outside on a bright day. However, I don't know if I would solely make my decision on that, as 700 nits is actually quite bright, and in most scenarios it's going to be bright enough for what you need. If it's not quite bright enough, there are different third-party accessories you can purchase, different sunshades that can attach to it, but myself, I find that 700 nits is adequate for most situations. Now, another deciding factor that might be important to some people, but not maybe perhaps important to everybody, and that is the quality of the screen capture. Both devices are capable of doing screenshots and screen recordings. However, the DJI RC just does a nicer job. The video that you're left with is at a much higher quality. It's not quite as compressed. The bitrate on the DJI RC is actually quite low, so the video can look a little bit fuzzy. Now, both remotes are capable of having an external microphone plugged into them, so if you do want to get audio, say some commentary with your videos, both devices are equally capable in that aspect. Now, another deciding factor which might be important to some people, when it comes to the DJI RC Pro, there is much better file management when it comes to previewing files, moving files around, organizing them. It's a little bit easier on the RC Pro. We actually get a Files app, which we can go in and move things around quite easily. With the DJI RC, we don't have that option, so you're very limited to what you can do when it comes to file management. Now, another feature of the RC Pro that is not available on the DJI RC, and that is HDMI out. For some people, that is not really a concern, but for other people, it's a mandatory thing that they need. So if you are a person that will need that HDMI out, your only option really is the RC Pro. Now, when it comes to the performance of the controller when you're out flying a drone, both perform equally as well. I wouldn't really say I prefer one over the other. Both controllers feel very fluid when flying. I wouldn't really say there's one that I prefer over the other when it comes to that aspect. However, when it comes to power performance, the RC Pro does have a much faster processor, so everything just is a little bit snappier. When you're switching different modes or you take a panorama and it has to stitch it all together, the time it takes to perform those actions are quite a bit less on the RC Pro just due to its extra speed and power. And while we're on the subject of power and performance, having that extra power is perhaps going to give you an extra bit of longevity when it comes to the controller compatibility with future drones. And we've seen that with the smart controller. When DJI started adding some of the newer drones, the flight experience wasn't quite as good as some of the earlier models, and that was just due to the controller being a little underpowered. It was starting to show its age. So with something like the RC Pro compared to the DJI RC, just due to its extra power, you know that you're perhaps going to get a little bit longer use out of it. The RC Pro does have a few extra buttons on it for customization, which can be appealing to some people. And on top of that, you have basically a full tablet experience. You can run third-party apps on this controller, including the DJI Virtual Flight app. So again, that's going to be very appealing for some people. Now, when it comes to battery life and usage, both perform actually pretty well. However, the DJI RC is rated for 4 hours of usage, compared to 3 hours of the RC Pro. Now, when it comes to charging the controllers, both take approximately an hour and a half to fully charge. Now lastly, one important deciding factor for you is the range and penetration. This is kind of a controversial subject because you ask different people, they'll all give you different answers. But when it comes to range and penetration, they're very similar. One thing to note, however, is the RC Pro actually has 4 antennas. We have 2 fold-out antennas, but we also have 2 built-in ones there as well. So it has a total of 4 antennas. The DJI RC only has 2 built-in antennas, so theoretically it's not going to have as good of range or as good a penetration. Now, just from my experience, I've done a lot of testing with them, and I've actually uploaded some different videos on my YouTube channel about that. I find them very similar. I wouldn't really say one is better than the other. Perhaps the RC Pro does have a little bit better penetration, especially when you get in behind trees and there's some obstacles. But when it comes to range, I really haven't noticed all that much of a difference. Now, those are the locations that I fly in, so every location and everybody's going to have different results. Some people are definitely going to have better luck with something like this due to those extra antennas. So that is something that you will have to kind of decide on your own. Now, if you own both these controllers, I would appreciate it if you put your results down in the comments, just to help people out. If you find one has better penetration or range than the other, let me know down in the comments. I think that information will be very useful for others who are considering which controller to purchase. Now, as mentioned at the beginning of this video, I think the DJI RC is probably suitable for most people, just due to its lower cost and its capabilities. A lot of the advanced functions of the RC Pro, most people aren't going to make use of. So in that aspect, something like this is your better choice. Of course, there are going to be features of the RC Pro that are a must for some people, and then again, that's going to be a better option for you. Now again, if I've forgotten anything important that one controller does over the other, please post that down in the comments, anything that I may have missed. Well folks, that's basically it for this video. Hopefully you found this video had value. Give it a thumbs up if you did. It's always greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And we'll see you in the next one.